This story will help you stop overthinking things in your life. I remember standing on a cliffside, not one of jagged rocks and crashing waves, but a cliff of my own making, built from 1,000 anxious thoughts. Below me wasn't a dizzying drop, but the calm, inviting expanse of a new opportunity, a chance to move to a city I would always dreamed of living in. The job offer was solid, the apartment was secured, and yet I was paralyzed. My mind had become a courtroom where I was both the prosecutor and the defendant, endlessly debating every possible worst-case scenario. What if I get there and hate the job? What if I can't make new friends? What if the city is too loud, too busy, too different? What if I fail and have to crawl back, defeated? Each what if was a stone, and I was diligently, almost obsessively, cementing them into a wall that blocked the path forward. My life, up to that point, had been a series of these self-constructed prisons. I overthought friendships until the spontaneity withered and died. I overthought creative projects until the initial spark of inspiration was smothered by a wet blanket of self-doubt. I would spend hours crafting the perfect text message, only to have the moment pass. I replayed conversations in my head, scrutinizing every word, every pause, searching for hidden meanings that were never there. My mind was a relentless editor, cutting and rewriting the script of my life until it was a pale, hesitant version of what it could be. I was living in a constant state of analysis paralysis, convinced that if I could just think my way through every possible outcome, I could somehow control the future and avoid all pain. But in my quest to avoid hypothetical failure, I was guaranteeing a real one, the failure to live at all. This particular cliff, the one about moving, felt different. It was bigger. The drop was higher. The stakes felt monumental, and my overthinking mind went into overdrive. I spent sleepless nights creating intricate spreadsheets, comparing the cost of living down to the penny, mapping out potential commute times for jobs I didn't even have yet, and reading every single online forum about the pros and cons of my potential new neighborhood. I was drowning in data, but starved of decision. The joy and excitement of the opportunity had been completely eclipsed by annoying, ever-present anxiety. I was so busy preparing for a storm that I couldn't feel the sunshine on my face. One afternoon, lost in this spiral, I called my grandfather. He's a man who has lived a life of action, not hesitation. He's a gardener, and his hands, though wrinkled and aged, tell stories of planting, nurturing, and harvesting. I poured out my anxieties, my endless lists of pros and cons, my fears, my meticulously constructed scenarios of doom. I expected him to debate the points with me, to engage with my logic, to help me analyze the data. Instead, he was silent for a moment, and then he said, "You retrying to count all the leaves on a tree before you decide to sit in its shade." His words struck me with the force of a physical blow. It was such a simple, beautiful metaphor, and it cut through the noise in my head with stunning clarity. He went on to explain. "You can't know everything," he said gently. "You can't predict how every leaf will turn in the autumn, or which branch a bird will choose for its nest. You can see that it's a good, strong tree. You can feel that its shade would be a comfort on a hot day. The rest, you just have to trust. You have to walk over, sit down, and let life happen." He told me about a time he'd had a chance to buy a small plot of land when he was a young man. He'd almost talked himself out of it. The soil was a bit rocky. It was further from town than he'd liked, and the well needed work. He'd spent weeks agonizing. Finally, he just took the leap. That plot of land became the garden he'd tended for 50 years, the place where he'd raised his family, the source of so much of his life's joy. "If I had waited until I had all the answers," he said, "I'd still be standing on the edge of that field, wondering." Hanging up the phone, I felt a profound shift inside me. My grandfather hadn't given me a solution. He had given me permission. Permission to not know. Permission to trust. Permission to act without a guarantee. I looked at my spreadsheets, my lists, my frantic research. I had been trying to build a perfect, indestructible boat to cross a river, when all I really needed to do was take the first step into the water. The fear of the unknown was what I was really fighting, and overthinking was my weapon of choice. But it was a faulty weapon, one that was only harming me. It created the illusion of control while actually keeping me caged. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I closed my laptop. I put away my notebooks. I went for a walk without a destination in mind. I just walked. I listened to the sounds of the evening, watched the sky change color, and focused on the simple physical sensation of my feet on the pavement. I was practicing being present, not in the future, not in a hypothetical disaster, but right here, right now. For the first time, I wasn't analyzing the walk. I was just experiencing it. It was a small act, but it felt revolutionary. I was learning to sit in the shade without having counted the leaves. The next day, I formally accepted the job offer. I signed the lease for the apartment. I didn't do it because all my fears had magically vanished. They were still there, whispering in the back of my mind, but they were no longer in the driver's seat. I had acknowledged them, and then I had chosen to act anyway. The act of making the decision, of taking that step off the cliff of my own making, was terrifying, but it was also liberating. It was like a dam inside me had broken, and the stagnant water of indecision was finally flowing again. The move was not perfect. The job had challenges I couldn't have predicted. Making friends in a new city was harder and took longer than I'd hoped. There were days of loneliness and doubt, days when the old voices of overthinking would try to scream, "I told you so." But something was fundamentally different. I had learned to distinguish between productive thought and destructive overthinking. Productive thought was making a plan. Overthinking was trying to plan for every conceivable deviation from the plan, an impossible and exhausting task. Instead of letting a difficult day at work spiral into a narrative of career failure, I learned to see it for what it was, a single difficult day. Instead of interpreting a quiet weekend as proof of my impending lifelong solitude, I saw it as an opportunity to explore my new city on my own terms. I started focusing on actions instead of anxieties. Feeling lonely? I'd look up a local hiking group or a volunteer opportunity. Feeling overwhelmed at work? I'd break a large task into smaller, manageable steps and tackle just the first one. I was replacing the question, "What if it all goes wrong?" with a new one. What is one small thing I can do right now? Over time, this practice rewired my brain. The mental courtroom in my head began to quiet down. The prosecutor ran out of evidence because I was too busy living my life to provide him with new hypothetical cases. The prison walls I had built around myself crumbled, not because of one grand explosion, but stone by stone, with each small decisive action. I learned that confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's the trust in your ability to handle whatever comes next. You don't get that trust by thinking about it. You build it by doing. By facing the small challenges, you prove to yourself that you can handle the bigger ones. Looking back, my grandfather's wisdom was the seed. He didn't tell me to stop thinking. He told me to stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Life is not a math problem to be solved. It is a story to be lived. You cannot write the final chapter before you've even lived the first. There will always be variables you can't account for, twists in the plot you didn't see coming. And that is not a flaw in the plan. That is the nature of a good story. Overthinking is the attempt to strip the story of all its mystery, to read the last page first. But in doing so, you rob yourself of the journey, the suspense, the joy, the sorrow, the growth. If you find yourself standing on a cliff of your own, paralyzed by 1,000 what-ifs, I want you to think of a tree, a good, strong tree. You don't need to count its leaves. You don't need to predict its future. You just need to take one step and then another and go sit in its shade. The rest of the story will unfold as it's meant to. Not because you've planned it all, but because you were brave enough to let it begin. This story, I hope, will help you stop overthinking things in your life. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that can help you on your journey. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.